It all began when the goddess bestowed her light upon a world that was nothing but a black whirlpool of chaos. From that divine brilliance, continents formed and 9 races were born: the Dragonians, elves, Oni, dwarves, demons, dark elves, centaurs, beast folk, and finally, humans. In a quiet human village, a young boy named Light prepared to leave his home. Filled with dreams, he bid farewell to his family, determined to become a great adventurer and create a better life for the people he loved. Yet his journey began not with triumph, but with a harsh dose of reality. When he arrived in the grand city, Light was overwhelmed. The place moved at a relentless pace, people rushed past without warmth or patience, and the sense of community he knew from his village was nowhere to be found. His first true disappointment came when he visited the Adventurers Guild to register his gift. Light introduced himself and revealed his unique ability, Unlimited Gacha, an odd skill that allowed him to press a button and summon an item based on the card drawn. Curious, he demonstrated it. The first card summoned a bent fork. The next 2 gave him a rotten apple and a moldy piece of bread. The onlookers scoffed, and the receptionist, unimpressed, classified him as F rank, the lowest possible grade. Embarrassed but not defeated, Light asked for available jobs. Unfortunately, the city's high illiteracy rate included him among its victims. Unable to read the job board, he had to settle for simple manual labor, collecting firewood and hauling supplies. The pay was miserable, but Light worked tirelessly, hoping each day's effort would bring him one step closer to his dream. That hope was shattered when a group of beast folk ambushed him after work, beating him and stealing his meager earnings. The crowd watched without compassion, treating him as if he were nothing more than garbage on the street. Yet, amid the cruelty, a single figure stepped forward, an elf with golden hair and gentle eyes. She knelt beside the beaten boy, helping him up with unexpected kindness. Her name was Sasha, a member of the Confronting tribes, an adventuring group that sought to unite the 9 races born from the goddess's light. Each member represented their kind: Garu the Beastman, Drago the Dragonian, Diablo the Demon, Oboro the Oni, Nano the Dwarf, a Dark Elf, and Santor the Centaur. Only one race was missing: humans. Light was invited to join them, and believing he had finally found both purpose and companionship, he accepted without hesitation. But being part of such a powerful group proved far more difficult than he imagined. While his teammates faced ferocious monsters with confidence and skill, Light struggled to keep up. Weak and inexperienced, he constantly needed protection, usually from Sasha, who often shielded him from harm. Her constant worry became a running joke among the others, who teased her for treating him like a child. Sasha always brushed it off, insisting it was her duty to protect the group's reputation. Still, it was clear she cared more than she admitted. Little Light couldn't fight. He contributed in other ways, carrying supplies, tending to injuries, and brewing tea that everyone came to adore during their breaks. Gradually, his quiet efforts earned him a sliver of respect. But deep beneath that fragile camaraderie, something darker was brewing. One day, while exploring a dungeon, their leader Drago suddenly stopped the group in a dimly lit corridor. He declared that the place was perfect for what they needed to do. Tension filled the air as everyone fell silent. Light, unaware of the heavy atmosphere, began unpacking his kettle to prepare tea. That was when Drago revealed the truth. The group had brought Light there to expel him. Confused, the boy looked to his companions for answers, but all he saw were cold, hateful eyes. Even Sasha, the one who once protected him, now glared with disdain. The Conqueror tribes had decided that Light was nothing more than dead weight. They confessed that he was only included because their superiors suspected his ability might belong to a master, a being of immense hidden power. To confirm it, they had observed him like an experiment. When it became clear that his stats were ordinary, they concluded he was useless. With their true intentions revealed, their prejudice surfaced. They insulted his race, calling humans filthy and weak. The cruelest blow came when Sasha mocked the idea of ever having to marry someone like him, claiming she was relieved her mission to preserve elven bloodline would never stoop that low. Their orders were not just to expel him, but to kill him. In that dark corridor, Garu unsheathed his steel claws and attacked. His strike tore across Light's face, spilling blood and confirming the nightmare was real. In a panic, Light ran, desperate to survive, but Sasha's arrow pierced his leg, sending him crashing to the ground. As he crawled away, begging for his life, Garu approached, ready to finish him. But fate intervened. Light's trembling hand pressed against a glowing sigil on the floor, a teleportation trap. In an instant, a blinding light enveloped him, and he vanished before the killing blow could land. He reappeared deep within the dungeon's lowest level, a forbidden place crawling with monsters of unimaginable strength. Alone, bleeding and betrayed, Light realized he was doomed. He thought of his family, knowing he would never see them again, and wept quietly in the darkness. Everything he believed in, equality, unity, friendship, had been a lie. But even in despair, a faint spark remained. Amid his tears, Light swore vengeance. He would kill them all, not out of hatred alone, but to reclaim his worth in a world that had discarded him. As he struggled to stand, the ground trembled. The Hellhound Serpent, a level 1000 creature, emerged from the shadows. His monstrous form towered over him, radiating heat and malice. Against such a beast, Light had no chance, yet he refused to die without trying. With nothing else to rely on, he activated his only gift, Unlimited Gacha. A card appeared in his trembling hands. When he pressed the button, a blinding light erupted and a woman stepped forth from the void. Dressed in a maid uniform, she raised her hand and annihilated the Hellhound in a single strike. The creature disintegrated into ash, leaving only silence in its wake. The woman turned to Light and knelt. Her healing magic mended his wounds instantly, restoring even the shattered bone in his leg. She spoke with graceful composure, addressing him as Lord Light, and swore to serve him unconditionally. Her name was Mai, the ever-seeking maid, a level 9999 summon, one of the rarest beings in existence. Using her appraisal technique, Mai examined her master's true potential. Beneath several layers of sealed power, she saw something extraordinary, the dormant force of a chosen one. The unlimited Gacha, she explained, was far from useless. Its strength was influenced by the mana flow of its surroundings. The stronger the area's energy, the more powerful the results. The reason Light had summoned her was because he had unknowingly activated it in one of the most mana-rich places in the world, the dungeon's deepest depths. Mai assumed her master had done this intentionally, but Light, humbled and trembling, admitted it was pure chance, a desperate escape from betrayal. Seeing the pain behind his words, Mai embraced him gently, understanding that her master carried a wound deeper than any physical injury. She pledged her life to helping him achieve the vengeance he desired. Yet Light refused to let her handle everything. He wanted revenge with his own hands, no matter how impossible it seemed. Rather than doubt him, Mai smiled and vowed to follow his will, assisting him in every way possible. Her loyalty was absolute. In the darkness of that cursed dungeon, the boy who had been deemed worthless began to awaken. Light pressed the gacha button again, this time with resolve, his mind set on building the foundation of his revenge. The chamber glowed as countless cards materialized, flooding the room with radiance. From that moment on, the weakest adventurer in the world began his rise toward vengeance, the dawn of a new legend born from despair and divine power. So began the tale of Light and his unlimited gacha, where betrayal forged strength and the depths of darkness became the birthplace of his destiny. 3 years had passed since Light's descent into the deepest part of the abyss. Within the heart of his vast black castle, the air was heavy with the quiet reverence of those who served him. Every corridor shimmered with faint magic, and each servant bowed as he passed. At his side walked Mai, his ever-loyal headmaid, whose calm composure masked the intensity of her devotion. The fairy maids around them couldn't help but fawn over their master's presence, whispering admiration as he strode through the halls. Though Light paid them no mind, Mai's displeasure was impossible to hide. She viewed their behavior as a breach of decorum, yet out of respect for Light's tolerance, she restrained her impulse to discipline them. Beyond the towering gates, the castle's streets were alive with movement. The residents of the Abyss greeted Light with awe, referring to him as their master and ruler. The society he had built over these 3 years had grown more prosperous and organized, though its expansion brought new challenges. A woman approached, humbly reporting that their supplies of snacks and food had begun to dwindle. Light assured her that the administrator would be informed, while Mai noted that the matter would be swiftly resolved to maintain the castle's flawless reputation. The population had grown rapidly, and Light knew that their logistics system would soon require a full revision. As they walked, Light inquired about the other members of his quartet. Mai reported that Ayuki was stationed at the upper perimeter of the Abyss, mapping the dense, monster-filled forests that surrounded their territory. Light expressed his satisfaction, knowing that Ayuki's sharp instincts and unmatched skill made her ideal for reconnaissance. Mai, however, remarked privately that Ayuki's feline nature made her unpredictable, yet Light saw no fault in that. He valued each of his summons precisely for their individuality. Alice, meanwhile, had been dedicating herself to magical research. She was developing new spells aligned with Light's grand design, a complex web of strategies that would soon unfold. Though her workload was immense, Mai assured Light that Ellis found joy in her service, channeling her admiration for him into every new creation. As for Nazuna, she remained faithful to her post as the castle's guardian, patrolling the grounds with enthusiasm and pride. Her strength in close combat made her a formidable protector, even if her recklessness often left others exasperated. Light regarded her with fondness nonetheless, seeing in her a kind of untamed purity that balanced the composure of his other summons. When Light returned to the castle's inner halls, he was met by Jack, the stalwart warrior who had long served as his sparring partner and confidant. Though Jack's casual tone sometimes grated against Mai's strict sense of hierarchy, Light saw him as an older brother figure, a trusted companion forged through countless battles. Leaving Mai her duties, Light followed Jack to the training grounds. The echo of their blows soon filled the vast arena. Light's punches carried tremendous force, honed through years of relentless discipline, while Jack countered with the precision of a veteran fighter. Their duel unfolded like a clash of tempered steel, neither yielding easily. Despite the intensity, their bond was evident in the way they pushed each other's limits without malice. By the end of the match, they stood shoulder to shoulder, breathing heavily but grinning in mutual respect. The two later retreated to the baths to unwind, where the conversation turned serious. Jack reminded Light that few could rival his strength within the abyss, though he cautioned that the surface world held dangers yet unseen. Light, haunted by the scars of his past, vowed silently that he would never falter again. His revenge was not yet complete, and he would see it through to the end. While Light trained, Nozuna carried out her usual patrols around the castle. Her cheerful spirit and boundless energy made her well-liked among the staff, who often praised her diligence. When a group of fairy maids asked her to inspect a supposedly restricted area, she accepted without question, unaware that they were trying to set her up. Following their vague directions, she arrived at Light's private chambers, only to find Maya already there. The head maid, startled by her sudden appearance, hastily fabricated an excuse, claiming to be conducting cleaning duties. Nozuna, ever naive, inspected the room herself and immediately noticed the disheveled bed. She innocently concluded that Maya had been practicing a strange bed-making style, and her curiosity grew. Amused yet relieved by the misunderstanding, Maya allowed the farce to continue, secretly thankful for Nozuna's obliviousness. Before leaving, Nozuna remembered a message she was supposed to deliver from the maids. Reading it aloud without comprehension, she revealed their demand to end Maya's exclusive right to clean Light's quarters, accusing her of hoarding privileges. Though Maya maintained her composure, the letter only strengthened her resolve to discipline them. She rewarded Nozuna with a few coins from her efforts, which delighted the clueless guardian, who skipped away to spend her newfound riches at the market. Nozuna spent her coins on dorayaki and milk, savoring the simple pleasure of a treat after duty. Along the way, she encountered a Yuki, who had just returned from the surface. Mistaking the silent scout's feline behavior for conversation, Nozuna carried on a one-sided chat, misinterpreting every gesture and expression. Ayuki's patience wore thin, but she eventually handed over a completed section of the map for Mai, confirming her mission's success. Nozuna, proud to have understood, praised her before resuming her patrols. Later, Nozuna wandered into the throne hall, where the majestic seat of Light stood unoccupied. She admired it wistfully, imagining him seated upon it as he often was during audiences. Overcome with emotion, in her enthusiasm, she accidentally broke the wing of a sculpted decoration. Horrified, she tried to reattach it before fleeing the scene, hoping no one had noticed. Meanwhile, Mai summoned the rebellious maids for a private meeting. Reading their letter aloud, she demanded an explanation for their insubordination. Cornered and terrified, the maids offered clumsy excuses, claiming they only wished to ease her workload. Mai, unconvinced, assigned them an arduous punishment to clean the entire hallway leading to the throne room by hand. Their complaints were ignored. Discipline, she reminded them, was the foundation of servitude. Afterwards, she revealed she would soon depart on a mission to the surface, leaving them to reflect on their mistakes in her absence. But the maids' resentment only deepened. As they scrubbed floors, their envy of Mai's position festered into whispered curses. They gossiped about how she had been Light's first summon, imagining the time she spent alone with him in the abyss before the others arrived. Their jealousy turned feverish until, by chance, Mai overheard their mutterings. She confronted them calmly, reciting the very words of their attempted curse. Trembling, they confessed that envy had clouded their judgment. Mai, maintaining her poise, reminded them that during those early months, Light had devoted himself entirely to study and training. There had been no time for the indecent fantasies they imagined. Disappointed but resolute, she extended their punishment, ordering them to clean the throne room as well before her departure. The maids had no choice but to obey. That night, as the maids worked tirelessly, the broken sculpture wing Nozuna had damaged earlier fell to the floor, startling them into panic. Elsewhere, Nozuna lay peacefully in her bed, blissfully unaware of the chaos she had caused. She reflected on her day, proud of her patrols yet longing to see Light again. Her heart carried a mixture of admiration and yearning, emotions she could not fully understand. With a quiet sigh, she fell asleep, her last thought a wish to see her master the next day. At dawn, her wish was granted. Light appeared at the training grounds where Ellis and Nozuna were engaged in one of their usual squabbles. The moment Nozuna saw him, her face lit up with pure joy. Ellis, ever composed yet competitive, subtly reminded her that Light was there for official business, not idle chatter. Ayuki stood nearby, silent as always, until Light affectionately patted her head, a gesture that caused visible jealousy among the others. Their attention quickly shifted, however, when a massive hellhound emerged from the shadows of the arena. The beast's presence stirred old memories within Light, memories of his first, terrifying day in the abyss. For a brief moment, fear gripped him. But before the creature could act, his summons stepped forward, their eyes glowing with lethal intent. To them, the mere sight of their master's distress was an offense worthy of annihilation. Sensing their rising fury, Light composed himself and approached the hellhound, calming it with a touch. He knew that his summons, bound by devotion, would obey any command he gave, even if it meant destruction on a massive scale. Their loyalty was both his greatest strength and his heaviest burden. After ensuring the creature's safety, he gathered his servants. A message from Mai had arrived, signaling that the time had come to enact the first phase of his long-awaited revenge. The prey had taken the bait, and the wheels of destiny began to turn once more. Lord Garou was highly respected by the people of the city, yet his reputation hid a cruel truth. One afternoon, upon encountering a young human boy rummaging through the trash, he treated him as nothing more than filth, kicking him aside and spitting on his face before ordering him to get out of the way. To Garou, humans were worms. Afterward, he entered a nearby bar where he was welcomed as if he were a god. The regulars raised their cups to him, admiring the beast who had risen from the slums to become the city's most celebrated hero and a favored candidate to lead the werewolves. Garou basked in their praise, explaining that strength did not come easily. One had to embrace the instincts of a beast to thrive. To him, it was about knowing which jobs were worth taking and which were not. That philosophy, he claimed, was how he had become what he was. As he drank, one of his men inquired about a particular mission from 3 years ago. Garou remained silent. That job was something only he could speak of, and the memories still lingered in his mind. It had been a lucrative one, hunting down a human boy suspected of being a master. Killing him had brought immense fame and fortune to everyone involved. But the boy had disappeared after falling into a teleportation trap. Garou was certain no one could have survived those wounds. Yet even now, he still could not fully understand what these so-called masters were that nations were so desperately searching for. Somewhere deep within, curiosity stirred, but instinct told him it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. He ordered another round of drinks, unaware that someone unexpected was about to arrive. A woman entered the bar, a young servant named Mai. She introduced herself and addressed him by his old tribal name, drawing gasps from those nearby. The room went silent. Garou's subordinates growled at her for speaking so casually to their leader, but he silenced them with a gesture and asked what business brought her there. Mai declared that she was a servant of Lord Light, a boy she had sworn eternal loyalty to, and that she had been searching for his whereabouts for years. Garou grew curious, wondering if she knew something others did not. She claimed that the boy was of noble blood, though Garou found the idea absurd. To him, there was no way that a child like Light could be noble. Mai refused to elaborate, choosing silence over explanation. In Garou's mind, he recalled that the superiors had investigated Light thoroughly and never mentioned anything about nobility. Still, if Mai's claim was true, it could be an opportunity. She radiated wealth, and Garou saw potential profit in her presence. He decided not to believe her words, but to use them nonetheless. Mai pleaded to be taken to the last place where Light had been seen. Garou, sensing an opportunity and a trap, agreed. He gathered his best men, not for gold, but for revenge for his fallen comrade. Deep down, however, greed still guided his decision. They eventually traveled into a dungeon where Garou intended to lead her into the depths, use her body, and dispose of her afterward. Upon reaching the cavern where Light had vanished, Garou fabricated a story. He explained that the boy had been attacked by a monster, wounded, and accidentally triggered a teleportation trap that had sent him away. Mai knelt in grief, overwhelmed by emotion. Garou pretended to share her sorrow, though his intentions were far darker. Soon the exits were blocked, trapping her. He viewed humans as fragile and easy to deceive, yet as she began to speak, his confidence wavered. She described the betrayal and torture Light had endured in vivid detail, things no outsider could possibly know. She spoke of his suffering, of the filth and dampness of his prison, and of the pain he endured while being beaten and left covered in blood. Garou froze. Only members of the tribal concord and a handful of superiors knew those details. As realization struck, fear followed. He demanded to know how she had learned such things. Mai's eyes grew cold as she declared that her loyalty belonged only to Light, and that she would eliminate everyone responsible. Before Garou could act, the atmosphere shifted. A familiar presence emerged from the shadows. Light himself appeared, his calm expression concealing the fury beneath. Everyone stood paralyzed, unable to comprehend how the boy had survived. 3 years had passed since his supposed death, and yet he stood there unchanged. Panic spread among the werewolves. They suspected an ambush, convinced others must be nearby. Garou, trembling, could not understand how the boy he had once crushed could stand before him alive. Light, now far stronger, had returned for revenge. Garou mocked him, laughing at the idea that a mere level 15 human could challenge someone his caliber. He was a level 150 beast warrior, surrounded by companions even stronger. There was no possibility of defeat, or so he believed. The tension snapped when two of his men were instantly decapitated. Maya had moved faster than anyone could react. Blood splattered across the stone floor as silence fell. Light thanked her calmly and asked only that she block the exits to prevent anyone from escaping. Terror filled the room. Garu insisted it was a fluke as she had caught them off guard, but Light's presence was different, measured, unshaken. Garu continued to mock humanity, claiming they would always be inferior. He insisted that humans were born weak, destined to remain beneath beastkind. Light countered this belief not with words but with action. Garu's confidence faltered when Light pointed out that every race had its own level cap, a system that fueled discrimination against humans. But Garu dismissed it, boasting that beasts were simply stronger. He lunged forward, preparing to crush the boy. In a blur of motion, Light eliminated Garu's remaining men with his staff, each strike deliberate and final. Garu grew desperate, using a magical stone to summon a level 500 monster to destroy him. Yet Light remained still. The monster lunged and dust filled the air. When it cleared, Light stood untouched, having blocked the attack with ease. The beastman's eyes widened in disbelief. Then, with a single motion, Light froze the creature solid and shattered it into fragments. The display of power sent Garu into utter shock. A level 500 monster destroyed effortlessly, something no human could do. Light then revealed his current level, 999. The entire pack trembled. Humans were never meant to surpass level 100, yet he stood before them as a living impossibility. Garu's mind spiraled into confusion and fear. The boy had not aged, his appearance preserved by a relic known as the Youth Bracelet. Light explained that he had never forgotten the despair and agony of that day, the betrayal, the blood, the humiliation. His voice, though calm, carried the weight of vengeance. Garu collapsed, trembling and pleading. He claimed that everything had been done under his nation's orders, that none of it had been personal. He begged Light to remember the camaraderie they once shared. His remaining allies mocked him for cowardice. Light demanded information about the masters, but Garu knew little. He explained that the superiors had merely ordered them to locate the masters without explaining why. When others tried to interject, Mai silenced them permanently, slicing them apart in an instant. Desperate, Garu admitted that even if Light were powerful enough to challenge the nations, he could never win alone. They possessed ancient weapons, relics, and artifacts collected over centuries. Light listened, understanding the truth yet unmoved by it. He had always known there were limits, even for him. He ordered Garu to follow him deeper into his chamber. There, the beastmen witnessed an army, humans and monsters alike, sworn to Light's command, their power radiating throughout the cavern. Overwhelmed, Garu broke down in terror, realizing that the boy had truly become something beyond mortal comprehension. As punishment, Light chose not to kill him. Instead, he condemned him to a life of eternal despair, an existence worse than death. Garu wept, realizing that they had created the very monster they once tried to destroy. In his final moments of clarity, he asked Light if his goal was to become a god. The boy paused, reflecting. The idea had never occurred to him, but he saw no harm in it. A god could decide the fate of all, granting joy or suffering at will. At last, Light turned toward the light at the cave's exit, ready to bring his power to the surface. The vengeance of 3 years had only begun. A while later, Light finally decided to return home to show his family how successful he had become. However, when he arrived, he was horrified to find his hometown completely destroyed. Terror overtook his body as he realized that the place where he had grown up had been decimated by an unknown force during his years away. 6 months passed, and although the pain never faded, Light found a small measure of relief in the fact that his family's bodies had never been found. There was still a chance they were alive, and that faint hope was all he could cling to. His warrior of gold advised that they find a place to stay, but another warrior, Nemumu, reminded him to be considerate since Light was grieving. Their disagreement over where to rest soon devolved into a petty argument about loyalty, each trying to prove who would endure the harshest conditions for their master's sake. Light interrupted them, deciding that lodging could wait. What mattered now was gathering information about the war they were preparing to wage. His goal was to learn the military strength of every nation in the world. Deep down, he suspected that the destruction of his hometown was tied to the accusations of him being a maestro. Consumed by anger, he wondered why such a title carried consequences so severe that it could lead to widespread bloodshed. Rage ignited within him, and he swore that if the world was truly corrupted and unjust, then he would burn it all to ashes. The power that surged through his body in moments of fury was enough to strike fear into his allies, who urged him to temper his emotions when in public. Yet Light resolved to grow even more aggressive. To conceal his identity, he donned a mask and instructed his companions to address him by a new name, Dark, whenever they were on the surface. This alias would prevent conquered tribes from learning his true identity. Dark planned to register as an adventurer, raise his rank through quests, and use the access it granted to obtain critical information. On their journey, they encountered a family being robbed. Gold revealed their presence prematurely, but the bandits proved no match for the group. Afterward, the family offered them a ride to Dragon City and explained that the dungeons there were perfect for adventurers seeking to level up. The city was renowned for its high-quality dungeon and was a popular destination for adventurers from all over the world. When the family mentioned that the dungeon attracted many beginners, the daughter expressed doubt that it was normal for newcomers to possess such strength. For Gold and Nemumu, it was their first time on the surface, and they were amazed by the abundance of weapon and armor shops. As the city belonged to the dwarves, famous for their craftsmanship, it served as a thriving hub for adventurers. Inside the guild, Light observed that most adventurers were human. Despite this, fear of other races lingered, revealing that humans were often treated poorly across the land. When Dark registered as an adventurer, he was ranked F by default, a rule that applied to everyone. Nemumu, however, was outraged, believing her master to be the most powerful human in history. She demanded that his rank be raised, but Dark humbly accepted the designation and completed his registration. The man they had saved earlier, named Colonel, turned out to be the owner of an inn. Dark rented the entire top floor for a month and requested that no one enter their quarters during their stay. Colonel initially refused payment in gratitude for having his life saved, but Dark insisted on compensating him fairly. Once settled, Dark used detection cards to ensure there were no hidden devices or surveillance items within their rooms. Later, Nemumu expressed concern about Light's safety, suggesting that he could easily remain in his castle and issue commands from there instead of endangering himself. The idea enraged him. His overwhelming thirst for revenge caused the entire building to tremble. Realizing her mistake, Nemumu apologized profusely. Gold, however, admired his master's resolve to personally carry out vengeance. Dark eventually calmed himself, acknowledging that Nemumu's intentions had been genuine concern. He apologized for losing control, though Nemumu, filled with guilt, lowered herself in a gesture of remorse. The next day, Dark explored the bustling streets where the lively atmosphere confirmed the dungeon's reputation. Many onlookers admired Gold's shining armor, while others were drawn to Dark's masked appearance. He began to worry that the mask might make him stand out even more. At the dungeon gates, a massive line stretched across the entrance. Gold noticed the absence of elves and soon recalled that elves and dwarves were locked in a bitter feud over ownership of the dungeon. As they waited, Dark felt uneasy at how closely Nemumu stayed by his side, though she insisted it was to protect him. Suddenly, 3 hooded figures approached and cut the line. The one leading them carried himself with confidence and wielded a massive, ornate weapon that immediately drew attention. The surrounding adventurers, intimidated by his aura, remained silent. Dark, however, stepped forward to remind the stranger that cutting in line was forbidden. The man grew furious at the audacity of being reprimanded, yet Dark stood firm. His companions joined him, mocking the offender's arrogance. The warrior, seething with anger, nearly drew his weapon, but his servant intervened, warning that starting the fight here would be excessive. Reluctantly, the group backed down and moved to the end of the line. The surrounding adventurers erupted with admiration for Dark's courage, many ashamed that they had stayed quiet out of fear. They asked if Gold's armor was truly made of gold, to which Nemumu clarified that it was not. Gold was far too soft for armor. Instead, Gold used the color symbolically to express his loyalty as a knight. The adventurers also pointed out that Dark's group seemed unprepared for an extended dungeon expedition since they carried no camping supplies. Realizing this, Dark acknowledged that they had grown too dependent on his item box, so they decided to carry some fake luggage to blend in more naturally. When they finally entered the dungeon, Light was struck by its beauty and complexity. Dungeons were mysterious entities, their true nature impossible to fully understand without analyzing the dungeon core itself. They were saturated with mana that grew stronger in the lower levels, spawning monsters and traps of increasing danger. Each dungeon was like a world of its own. To move more efficiently, Light used special cards to conceal their presence and grant them flight, allowing them to traverse the vast chambers effortlessly. Nemumu remained in awe of his abilities, especially when he revealed another card, Clairvoyance, which displayed the fastest route to the next floor. His powers made dungeon exploration nearly effortless, though it often left little excitement for the others. Elsewhere, the arrogant warrior from earlier vented his frustration by slaughtering orcs with his massive sword. His name was Kito, the youngest and most elite warrior among the Elven Kingdom's White Knights. He prided himself on being a genius and claimed to have once slain a maestro. His servant, Yanak, reminded him that their current objective was to hunt trolls on the lower floors, but Kito refused to listen. He believed that being challenged was an unforgivable insult. Kito's arrogance stemmed from his heritage as a supposed descendant of Maestro. Despite being level 1500, well beyond the typical limit for elves, he still considered himself weak and obsessed over surpassing every rival. Yanak, once exiled for his forbidden research, pledged loyalty to Kito, hoping to redeem himself through service. Yet deep down, Kito intended to discard Yanak once his usefulness ended. Meanwhile, Light's group had finished exterminating a horde of giant trolls. Their task required proof of reaching the 3rd floor, so they collected gems from the fallen beasts as evidence. On their way back, they noticed the same group of adventurers they had met earlier, now locked in battle with goblins. Dark's party intervened swiftly, eliminating a lurking snake that had been ready to strike. The young adventurers expressed their gratitude, but the moment of relief ended abruptly when Dark sensed danger approaching. Moments later, a pack of massive wolves emerged from the forest. The sight puzzled him, as creatures this strong were not supposed to appear on these floors. The group of adventurers prepared to flee, but the wolves suddenly rushed past them, ignoring their presence entirely. Then came the true threat, a colossal mantis monster crashing through the trees, its presence shaking the ground beneath them. The nightmare had only just begun. Shocked, the kids wondered how the mantis appeared, since its species had gone extinct over 10 years ago. As they prepared to run away from the monster, Light calmly asked if he could hunt it himself. Nemumu warned that the mantis was level 500, prompting the kids to suggest that his group leave before things got dangerous. Before anyone could react further, the mantis charged at them. Gold immediately took the lead to block its attack. After exchanging a few blows, he realized the creature was far more dangerous than he had anticipated. Light followed up by firing a spell of flaming arrows, but the mantis deflected them with the hard plates on its side. Watching the battle unfold, the leader of the kids urged his mage, Maya, to assist. She hesitated, astonished by how Light had cast his spell without any incantation. Her brother told her to focus on helping, but Gold reassured them that he could handle the situation. Preparing for the next strike, Gold instructed the children to observe closely as he demonstrated the balance between offense and defense. As if provoked by his words, the mantis lunged again. Gold intercepted its strike with his shield, shattering one of its sides with the rebound. Taking advantage of the creature's brief shock, he dashed forward and severed one of its legs. Light then stepped in, deciding it was his turn to fight. He unleashed a barrage of fire arrows that curved through the air, dodging the mantis' attempts to deflect them. The homing arrows pierced its back, one after another, leaving it howling in pain. Maya watched in awe as Light effortlessly controlled over 30 flaming projectiles, coordinating them to strike with surgical precision. Overwhelmed, the mantis tried to flee. Light conjured a wall of fire, forcing the creature to leap upward in an attempt to escape. Nemumu swiftly pursued it, leaping higher than anyone expected. Clutching her dagger, she struck the mantis midair, slicing apart in a single clean motion. The monster shattered into pieces. Feeling proud, Nemumu boasted about her victory, but Gold mocked her childish attitude. When he pointed out that she had completely destroyed the valuable monster materials, her pride quickly turned into panic. The kids, still recovering from the battle, could only stare in disbelief at how easily Light's group had defeated such a powerful beast. Among the remains, the kids discovered a perfectly intact monster gem. Gold praised their luck, relieved that Nemumu's reckless strike hadn't shattered it. Light examined the core and concluded that it would serve as proof to submit to the guild for a rank increase. Curious, the kids asked if Light's party was trying to raise their rank. Light's casual response that they were frank left them utterly confused. After the battle, Mia created a large water bubble to help Light's team clean up. Gold admired how his armor still gleamed brilliantly after washing, while Light stepped up to rinse his hands and encouraged the others to do the same. The kids expressed their gratitude, saying he had saved their lives and invited him to stay with them for the night. Light initially declined, not wanting to impose, but the group's leader revealed that his sister Maya was eager to learn about his advanced magic techniques. Seeing her hopeful expression, Light agreed to stay and join them around a campfire for dinner. As they ate, Light explained that his parents were genius mages. He encouraged Mia, saying she too possessed great magical talent. She modestly replied that her abilities couldn't compare to chantless spellcasting. Her brother questioned whether incantation-free casting was truly so impressive, prompting Maya to enthusiastically explain the 3 major classes of magic. Combat class spells, she said, were for direct attacks like Light's fire arrows. Tactical class spells, such as his firewall, were used for crowd control. Then there were the strategic class spells, massive incantations capable of altering entire regions, requiring multiple high-level mages to chant in unison. Such global spells were equivalent to natural disasters. She added that races like Dragonutes, Elves, and Daemonin possessed innate magical talent, while humans were comparatively limited. That was why she considered Light a world-class prodigy, a human capable of chantless casting. Gold nodded, impressed by her understanding, while Light awkwardly brushed off the praise. Maya's brother then remarked that regardless of Light's powers, he seemed like a kind person. To lift his sister's spirits, he reminded her that she would surely succeed once admitted to the duchy's magic school. Curious, Light asked about the duchy, learning it was a nation jointly founded by all 9 races. Gold commented that being admitted to such a prestigious academy was no small feat. Maya's brother explained that although she had been accepted, she couldn't attend because their parents, who had been paying her tuition, died in an epidemic. Left to survive on their own, the siblings formed an adventuring party with Jimra and Wardy to earn a living. He hoped that one day they would save enough to send Maya back to the academy and fulfill her dream. Feeling guilty for being a burden, Maya urged them not to worry so much about her. Watching the siblings care for each other, Light was reminded of his own younger sister. He encouraged them to keep pursuing their goals, sincerely believing in their potential. When Maya dismissed his words as mere kindness, he assured her that he meant it, giving her a small boost of confidence. Later, the party leader asked Light why he had become an adventurer. Light began recounting the tragedy that had taken his family. Nemumu revealed that the fire which killed them had left Light with burned scars, and they were traveling to seek treatment for him. Gold added that he and Nemumu owed Light's family a debt, and accompanying him was their way of repaying it. The mood around the fire turned somber as the story ended. Trying to lighten the atmosphere, Jimra jokingly asked if Nemumu and Gold were married. Nemumu immediately denied it, calling Gold a narcissist, while he retorted that she was an annoying brat. Jimra then boldly proposed to Nemumu, only for her to claim that her heart already belonged to Light. Gold teased that such a thing would be a waste, sparking another round of bickering between the two. Elsewhere, Kito cut down a monster as Yanak praised his skill. Kaito snapped back, irritated that his legendary sword, Grandius, was being used to slay mere beasts instead of heroes. Yanak reminded him that they needed monster samples for his experiments to break the level limit. Once the samples were secured, the Dark Elf decided it was time to start collecting human specimens next. Weeks later, Light returned to the Adventurers Guild with numerous rare resources. The receptionist admired his haul, while Nemumu boasted that her master deserved an S+ rank. Ignoring her exaggeration, Light requested payment for the materials and was offered tea while he waited. As they left the guild, his companions noticed how much the staff's attitude toward them had changed. On the streets, people whispered in awe, recognizing them as the party that had defeated the Mantis. A group of adventurers approached, asking if Light was from the Black Multi. Confused by the name, Light learned it was the title the townsfolk had given his team. Nemumu quickly grew defensive, but the adventurers, Suvalin and Gilbert, assured her they meant no harm. They explained that Light's success had inspired hope among the human race. As they departed, nearby adventurers from other races scoffed, dismissing humans as delusional. Gold simply remarked that they would silence such doubts through strength. When Light's party entered the dungeon again, he proposed heading straight to the 5th floor. However, spotting Maya's group along the way, they decided to check in on them. Maya's brother encouraged her to present a small gift she had made, an ointment for Light's burned scars. Though she admitted it couldn't heal the marks, it would ease the pain. Light accepted it with gratitude and, in return, summoned a card from his gacha that transformed into a beautiful bracelet. He'd offered it to her, and after some hesitation, she accepted it, promising to treasure it. Later that night, Nemumu questioned Light about giving away an SSR rank wish bracelet. Gold explained that such a relic could grant a person's wish if they desired it strongly enough. He commended Light's kindness, and Nemumu learned that not every gesture was about material value. When the party reached the snow-covered 5th floor, they noticed how quiet it was. Gold appreciated the stillness, though Nemumu pointed out that his shiny armor wasn't exactly subtle. Light reminded them of their mission to hunt Yetis before teleporting home. Back at his palace, he was greeted by his 4 loyal maids. Mai served him tea and asked about his adventures, to which he replied that everything was going well. When he inquired about their preparations for the final war, Ellie reported that they were nearly complete. Light told them to use whatever resources they needed. Nazuna eagerly asked for a special mission, but knowing her limits, Light simply ordered her to guard the castle. Mizuna impatiently urged Ellie to finish her assignment quickly, so she could begin hers. With preparations nearly done, Light sipped his tea, anticipating his coming battle with Sasha. Meanwhile, Suvalin's party camped on the dungeon's 3rd floor. As they rested, Suvalin and Gilbert discussed the rumors surrounding Light. Gilbert doubted their truth, but Suvalin reminded him that Maya had witnessed Light's feats firsthand, suggesting that he might even be a reincarnated hero. The thought filled them with hope that a human hero might once again rise to lead their race. Later that night, Suvalin went into the forest to relieve himself. When he returned, he found Gilbert's decapitated head on the ground. Standing nearby was Kito, growing impatient with his delay. Horrified, Suvalin realized that his entire team had been slaughtered in an instant. Kito taunted him, stomping on Gilbert's head to provoke a reaction. Instead of fighting, Suvalin used a smoke bomb to escape, thinking the elf couldn't see through the fog. But Kito's magic revealed his location, and he struck Suvalin down from above with a spell. As Suvalin lay on the ground, Yannick approached and struck him with his staff, scolding Kido for killing all the humans. He explained that he had needed live test subjects for his experiments. Kido dismissed the concern, saying one survivor should be enough, but Yannick insisted that more were necessary in case of failed trials. With a twisted smile, the dark elf declared that humans were nothing but worthless vermin, fodder for his experiments. After several days, Light and his party returned to the Adventurers Guild. Nemumu, impatient as always, slammed her hands on the counter and demanded that Light be promoted to S rank, insisting that anything less was an insult to his power. The receptionist, clearly unnerved, explained that such a promotion was impossible. Only a few days earlier, the guild had already made an exception by promoting Light directly to D rank after he single-handedly slew the Scythe Mantises, a monster species thought to be extinct. Nemumu's relentless arguing nearly drove the receptionist to tears until she finally blurted out that if Light accomplished another extraordinary feat, the guild might consider another promotion. Light found the challenge amusing. Soon after, he heard rumors of an adventurer killer who targeted only humans and decided that would be his next mission. That night, Light discussed the plan with Gold and Nemumu. Capturing the killer could indeed earn him recognition, but none of them knew where to begin. As they debated, Light suddenly sensed someone approaching. Acting on instinct, he donned his mask, while Gold and Nemumu readied their weapons. The shimmering portal opened before them. Expecting an enemy, the trio tensed for battle, only for a battered and bloodied Maya to tumble out. Light caught her just in time, noticing that the SR rank wish bracelet he had given her had snapped in half. He carried her to bed, where she weakly murmured about something urgent. Light healed her wounds first, then used his magic to peer into her memories, uncovering what had transpired. Through her memories, Light saw the previous day unfold. Maya's party, led by her brother with Jimra and Wardy beside him, had been exploring a dungeon when another group warned them of a mysterious adventurer killer who preyed solely on humans. Alarmed, Maya's brother decided they should leave immediately. But night fell before they could escape. Exhausted yet unwilling to camp, they pressed on until they encountered another group of masked adventurers. Concerned for their safety, Mia begged her brother to warn the masked group about the killers. He agreed, unaware that the very people they approached were the killers themselves. The strangers whispered about having failed to clean up the last mess. The children didn't understand until one of them laughed cruelly and called them fools. Then a tall swordsman unsheathed his gleaming blade and revealed himself as Kito, the adventurer killer. He declared that Maya's group would be his final hunt for the day. Maya's brother immediately ordered her to run while they held off the attackers. Despite her fear, she hesitated as her brother and the others charged. Offended by their defiance, Kito cut them down with blinding speed, her brother falling first, the others soon after. Screaming, Maya watched as her companions, bloody but defiant, struggled to rise again. With their last breaths, they urged her to flee and live out her dreams. They charged one final time, only to be struck down instantly. From behind, a dark elf stepped forward. He scolded Kito for killing the humans, saying he needed them alive for experiments. Kito scoffed, claiming that any human who dared fight him deserved death. Yannick decided to keep one survivor for study and pointed to Mia, recognizing her rare magical potential. Kito sneered, intrigued by her fear. As Kito advanced, Maya froze. He mocked her trembling, telling her to be grateful that a warrior of his caliber even acknowledged her existence. Before he could act, Mia's brother, barely alive, forced himself to his feet and shouted for her to run. Yannick was astonished by his willpower, remarking that such endurance would make for a fascinating test subject. But the boy, knowing death was inevitable, vowed to protect his sister until his last breath. With a shaky voice, he told Maya to run and never look back. In tears, she obeyed. Furious, Kito moved to finish the boy. Yannick tried to stop him, insisting that Maya must be captured before she escaped. Kito growled but turned back to kill the brother first. As Kito approached, the boy recalled a lesson Gold once taught him, that battle wasn't about power, but creativity. Feigning weakness, the boy suddenly hurled his sword at Kito's face. The elf flinched, narrowly dodging, only to be slammed by the boy's shield. Enraged, Kito retaliated with a burst of white light that pierced the boy's chest, killing him instantly. Cursing, Kito dashed after Mia. He cornered her in moments, cutting off her escape with a barrage of glowing blades. Declaring himself the wielder of the legendary sword Grandius, he demanded she kneel before him. Terrified yet defiant, Maya used his own light blades as stepping stones to leap away. She launched icicles at him, vowing to fight for the chance her brother had given her. Kito easily deflected her magic and slashed her leg to cripple her. Laughing cruelly, he told her to be grateful for his mercy. Through the pain, Mia shouted that he was nothing more than a bully who preyed on the weak, and that if anyone deserved to be called a hero, it was Light. The words cut deep. They echoed the same ridicule Kito had suffered from the elves of his youth, shattering his pride. Consumed by rage, he unleashed a storm of light blades toward her. In her final moment of despair, Maya wished with all her heart to reach Light, the only one who could save her. The shattered wish bracelet answered. A radiant light enveloped her and she vanished, teleporting straight into Light's room. After witnessing the memory, Light understood everything. He immediately ordered Nemumu and Gold to prepare for departure. Deep in the dungeon, Kato returned to Yanak, who was examining Maya's brother's barely breathing body. When asked about the girl, Kato admitted she had vanished for teleportation. Yanak went pale. If she reached the guild, the White Knights would surely be sent to arrest them and reclaim Grandius. The mention of the White Knights made even Kato flinch. Their captain was rumored to be over level 3,000, far beyond his reach. In frustration, he stomped the ground until Yanak promised that his experiments would soon help Kato break the level cap itself. That promise calmed him. Before they could move, a cold voice echoed from behind. They turned and froze. Light stood there, silent and expressionless. Neither elf had sensed him approach. He ignored their questions and knelt beside the wounded boys. Gold lifted the leader's body, noting how poorly the wounds had been treated. Yanak stared, realizing in horror that Light had retrieved the boy's corpse without them noticing. Light's healing magic flared softly as he tended to the fallen. The children had only wanted to earn enough money to send Maya to the duchy's magic school, and now they were dead. Grief darkened his expression. He rose, eyes filled with fury. Yanak stammered that they weren't criminals, that he had even healed the boy. Light cut him off coldly, saying he already knew everything through Maya's memories. The elves tensed as Light added that he hadn't informed the guild because they were his to deal with. Kato laughed, gripping Grandius. It was his lucky day, he thought. Killing Light would erase the last witness. Light's aura surged. The ground cracked beneath his feet, the air freezing solid. The guild wouldn't capture them, he said quietly, because they were already dead. Gold and Nemumu stepped back instantly, knowing this was Light's fight alone. Kato charged, his blade flashing with holy light. Light blocked it effortlessly with his staff. Again and again, Kato struck, but every blow was parried with mechanical precision. Gold and Nemumu watched, calm and unmoving. Kato's rage made his movements wild and predictable. Frustrated, Light deflected a heavy swing and countered with a single strike to Kato's chest, sending him sprawling. He had expected more. Humiliated, Kato roared and unleashed Grandius's true power. Dozens of radiant blades filled the air, each carrying elemental enchantments. Light dodged smoothly, noting how each impact froze or burned the ground. None could touch him. Kato appeared behind him in a blur, swinging down with all his might, only for Light to block again. Yanak gawked, unable to comprehend a human overpowering a level 1,500 elf. Driven mad, Kato accused Light of being a swordsman masquerading as a mage. To prove him wrong, Light raised a hand and hundreds of ice swords formed in the air around him, conjured chantless. Kato froze, disbelief twisting into terror. It was impossible. He launched another barrage of light blades, but Light's icicles intercepted each one with perfect accuracy, exploding on contact. Yanak could hardly breathe. Such control was beyond even the most elite of elven magic. Screaming, Kato ranted that no one could defeat Grandius, the sword blessed by the heavens and wielded by the maestros, the ancient masters of elven magic. Light paused, intrigued. The word lingered in the air. Kato smirked through his fury. He bore their blood, he claimed he was a sub-maestro, heir to the power of the ancients. After discovering that Kato carried the bloodline of a maestro, Light immediately changed his plan. He had originally intended to execute Kato on the spot, but the revelation made Kato too valuable to kill. Instead, Light decided he would drag him back into the abyss and extract every piece of knowledge buried inside his mind. Nemumu and Gold quickly understood the shift in priority and prepared to restrain Yanak while Light handled Kato. Yanak, however, protested. He insisted that it was unfair for them to gang up on someone who was not a fighter. Yet he clearly anticipated a scenario like this because he directed their attention to the two servants standing behind him. As the pair began to twist and shift, their bodies transformed into grotesque human-monster hybrids. These abominations were the result of Yanak's experiments, twisted attempts to surpass the natural limits of the human body by forcibly fusing people with monsters. Proud of his work, Yanak went on about how the creation of stable hybrids required countless human lab rats and how he intended to continue gathering even more victims whenever the opportunity arose. The sheer cruelty of his words sickened Nemumu, Gold, and Light. Yet what disturbed Light most was the realization that he recognized one of the hybrids. It was the man he had met in town not long ago, someone he now regretted failing to save from this fate. Unable to undo what had been done, Light asked Nemumu and Gold to end the victim's suffering. The two warriors swiftly sliced through the hybrids, putting them down without hesitation. But Yanak only grinned. explaining that the creatures had been designed to regenerate from any damage. As the hybrids rose from the ground, their bodies knitting themselves back together, Light grew slightly concerned for his two allies. However, Kumita relentlessly launched sword blasts at him, forcing him to focus elsewhere. Mugen Gold continued striking the hybrids, only to watch every wound seal itself instantly. Yannick mocked them relentlessly, calling them fools for thinking ordinary attacks could defeat the results of his research. Tired of his taunts and unwilling to prolong the agony of the transformed humans, Mugen Gold prepared their special techniques. Pouring mana into their weapons, they unleashed empowered slashes that cut through the hybrids with overwhelming force. Yannick initially laughed, believing regeneration would save them once again, but the hybrids failed to rise. They remained motionless, truly dead this time, reduced to nothing but ashes. While he mourned his work, Mugen casually walked up and kicked him from behind, ensuring he would no longer spout his arrogant commentary. Meanwhile, Light had been dominating Kido with overwhelming magic. Each near miss struck terror into Kido's face, a sight Light found ironically amusing given Kido's earlier arrogance. Refusing to accept humiliation from someone he viewed as beneath him, Kido activated the Holy Sword's ultimate form, coating the blade in multiple magical properties and extending its range dramatically. Light acknowledged the versatility of the weapon, but Kido's aim remained atrocious, causing every attack to miss entirely. In desperation, Kido accused Light of cowardice, claiming the human would already be dead if he would just stand still. Amused, Light obliged. He planted his feet and allowed Kido a free strike. Kido lunged with full power, confident the blow would land clean, yet the attack barely scratched Light. Shocked by the impossibility of a human withstanding a direct hit from Grandius, Kido struck again and again, only to achieve nothing. Eventually, Light grew impatient, shattered the sword's enchantment, struck Kido in the gut, and then sent him flying with a punch that left his face mangled. Standing over the defeated elf, Light informed him that death would come only after every question had been answered, and only after Kido experienced a pain far worse than what he had inflicted on others. Realizing escape was impossible, Kido resorted to begging. He revealed his origins in the Elven nation, his status as a former candidate for captain of the White Knights, and offered information on maestros in exchange for mercy. His pitiful demeanor infuriated Light, who compared Kido's cowardice to the genuine bravery of Elio, Jimra, and Wordy, adventurers who risked everything to protect the weak. Light offered silent apologies to the fallen Jimra and Wordy, promising to save Elio no matter what. With nothing more to say to Kido, Light prepared to leave. He grabbed both Kido and Yannick and teleported them. When the two elves opened their eyes, they were stunned to find themselves in the deepest section of the Abyss dungeon. They could not comprehend how Light had transported them so far from the dungeon they were in. Mugen, offended by their suspicions, stomped on Yannick's back. Soon after, the Abyss residents gathered, welcoming Light back but glaring at the two elves with disgust. Light explained to everyone that Kido and Yannick were heinous criminals responsible for horrific experimentation on innocent humans, including the deaths of two people Light considered friends. However, because the pair held valuable information about Maestro bloodlines, they were not to be killed yet. His allies agreed, but murderous intent radiated from them the entire time. With priorities set, Light instructed Gold to heal Elio and asked Mugen to accompany him to give Jimra and Wordy a proper burial. Before he could leave, Yannick desperately tried shifting the blame to Kido, while Kido countered with claims that Yannick had encouraged his actions. Their argument spiraled until Light quieted them by posing a simple question. Had either of them ever shown mercy when their victims begged for their lives? Their silence revealed the truth. Light concluded that they would receive the same treatment they once dealt to the helpless. Later, Maya awakened in an inn in Dagas and found Light waiting by her bedside. He explained that he and the others had arrived just before Kido captured her and had brought her to safety. Ilir's injuries had been healed, but there was nothing he could do for Jimra and Wordy. He handed her a lock of their hair, and although she was devastated, she expressed gratitude that she and her brother had been saved at all. Light stepped away to let her grieve, though the situation left him questioning whether pursuing revenge was truly the right path. The next morning, Light visited the guild to report everything about the adventurer killers, excluding the part where he took Kido and Yannick into custody. As far as the guild knew, the two culprits were still at large. For providing vital information and rescuing two potential victims, Light's party received a promotion to C rank. Later, he spoke with Maya and Elio. They decided to quit adventuring and return to their hometown to hold a proper funeral for their fallen friends. Light understood, but he wondered about Maya's studies. She declared she would continue learning magic on her own and promised to work hard so she wouldn't remain a novice the next time their paths crossed. After they left, Light returned to the Abyss. Maya and Ellie greeted him and provided a file containing everything they had extracted from Kido and Yannick. The information indicated that descendants of maestros possessed accelerated growth, and legends warned that an unchecked maestro could one day destroy the world. Light found the implications intriguing, though the memory Ellie extracted was fragmented and incomplete. When he asked about Keto and Nanak's condition, Ellie opened a portal revealing them broken and barely alive. Since no further information could be obtained, Light summoned a monstrous creature called Dead Man's Banquet and allowed it to devour the two criminals in a gruesome fashion. With that task finished, Ellie eagerly informed him that preparations were ready for the next stage of his revenge, targeting Sasha. She suggested capturing the White Knights first, since all of them were sub-maestros and potentially dangerous, especially the vice captain who was engaged to Sasha, making him an ideal hostage. Meanwhile, in the Elven Nation, Sasha cheerfully recounted to Mikhail how she once betrayed Light and made him beg for his life. Mikhail listened with delight, recalling his own joy in exterminating a human village and watching its inhabitants played in terror. The two continued sharing memories of tormenting humans, unaware that Light was already preparing to repay Sasha for every wound, humiliation, and betrayal she had inflicted upon him. Sasha returned home from her outing with Mikhail, accompanied by her maid, who quietly noted how elegant Sasha and Mikhail appeared together, as though they had been made to complement one another. Sasha barely reacted. Her attention drifted the moment their carriage halted. The road ahead was blocked by a mess of spilled food. A human slave, having been randomly whipped by an impatient elf, had dropped his entire load. As Sasha watched the trembling human grovel on the ground, her mind settled on a single conclusion: the utter worthlessness of the species. The sight disgusted her. Since clearing the food would take time, Sasha turned her gaze elsewhere. Through the carriage window, she happened to notice a figure standing in a nearby alley. Something about the silhouette froze her blood. Convinced her eyes had deceived her, she stared harder, dread crawling up her spine. Overwhelmed, she flung open the carriage door and sprinted toward the alley, unable to shake the terrifying possibility that she had seen Light. Breathless, she searched every corner. The space was empty. She tried forcing herself to believe she had imagined things. Light had died years ago, after all. But as she turned to leave, she spotted a note pinned to the brick wall. Its handwriting was unmistakable. It instructed her to come to the giant tower, and it was signed by Light. Panic crushed her. She collapsed to the ground, trembling uncontrollably, the implications hitting her all at once. Her maid found her moments later, crouched on the dirt, overwhelmed by despair. If Light were alive, everything she had gained from claiming to have killed him would crumble. The reward money, her noble title, even her engagement to Michael. Everything she had built was at risk of exposure. Unseen above, Light and Ellie watched from a rooftop. Light took quiet satisfaction in Sasha's breakdown, viewing it as the first step of his long-awaited vengeance. Ellie, however, nurtured far darker intentions towards Sasha. Her desire for retribution was far more severe than his. Elsewhere, at the White Knight encampment, a different scene unfolded. Two knights, Nehia and Kia, entertained themselves by torturing a human slave pinned to a wooden board and using him as a living dart target. His screams echoed through the camp, mingling with the casual cruelty that defined the White Knights. Nearby, Sharfat indulged in the company of his personal female human slave. She was compliant out of fear. She knew very well that resistance would earn her the same fate as the man tied up a few meters away. In the midst of this, the White Knights had been summoned for an urgent meeting. Reports had surfaced claiming that Kato, who had disappeared with the holy sword Grandius, had been roaming the land killing adventurers until he was finally defeated by a human. The White Knights were expected to manage the political fallout. Sharfat questioned why they were being tasked with cleaning up Kato's failures, but Musk reminded him that Kato was still one of their own. His disgrace reflected on all of them. The tortured slave's screams began irritating Sharfat. Annoyed, he ordered Nehia and Kea to end the man's life quickly. They refused, arguing that since they had paid for the slave themselves, they had the right to use him for entertainment. They also mocked Sharfat's notorious softness toward humans, which they found revolting. Must attempted to restore order, reminding them they were White Knights and not mere brutes. He added that he personally preferred killing humans swiftly to spare them needless suffering. The others disagreed. Cruelty was part of their culture. Throughout the escalating argument, the knight captain, Hardy, sat silently, his patience thinning by the second. Eventually, he slammed his hand on the table and barked for silence. His fury washed over the camp like a shockwave. Even a bird perched above dropped dead from fright. With control reestablished, Hardy scolded Nehia and Kea for engaging in pointless torment. He turned to Sharfat and ordered him to end the suffering of the tortured slave immediately. Hardy commanded Nehia and Kea to dispose of the remains. Sharfat's slave trembled at what she had witnessed, but Sharfat reassured her that he would never treat her that way. He then allowed her to leave. Once she was out of sight, Hardy turned to Sharfat, warning him to limit his intimate involvement with humans. Elves who grew too attached risked producing submasters, offspring born from humans but granted partial elven status. Hardy stressed that diluting the bloodline was unacceptable. Sharfat brushed off the warning. He never intended to have children with a slave. In fact, he had grown bored of her and casually mentioned he planned to kill her soon. Hardy declined Sharfet's invitation to join the act, insisting he despised humans but had no interest in unnecessary cruelty. His focus remained the Kato issue: the queen could not be humiliated. Later that night, Sasha attempted to rest, but a loud, thunderous noise jolted her awake. She rushed to her window and froze. A colossal tower had risen in the distant forest, reaching into the clouds. It matched the location in Light's message. Her fear intensified. By dawn, a slave trader transporting human children toward the city encountered a rock chimera that emerged from the trees. Terrified, he abandoned the children and fled, expecting the monster to devour them. Yet the beast ignored them entirely and vanished into the forest. Soon after, the elven population faced food shortages. Monsters had begun appearing along every trade route, devastating supply lines. The elves suspected the mysterious tower was to blame. The nation's forces were spread thin, so large monetary rewards were offered to adventurers for any information about the tower. Light, Gold, and Numu were among those who gathered. Numu drew attention almost immediately. Two elves approached her, struck by her beauty despite her being human. They attempted to persuade her to leave Light and join them. Numu declined calmly, reaffirming her loyalty to Light. When Light warned the elves to withdraw, one attempted to strike him. But Light countered with a lightning arrow, knocking the elf back effortlessly. Recognizing Light and his party as the infamous human adventurers from Dagas, the elves retreated quickly. Light was satisfied. Word of his return would spread fast. Inside the forest, another group of elven adventurers escorting a small human girl toward the tower used her as disposable monster bait. When she collapsed from exhaustion, they berated her and threatened to beat her. Their complaints about the laziness of human livestock were cut short when a drop of saliva fell from above. A rock chimera descended in a flash, biting one elf's head clean off. It mauled the others in seconds. The girl, shaking in terror, waited for return, but the chimera sniffed her, recognized her as human, and walked away. Moments later, rugged-looking men appeared from the woods. She expected the worst, but instead they smiled gently, applied a healing potion, and spoke about getting her proper food and clothing. She realized they were part of Light's rescue network. Their leader immediately contacted Oyuki to arrange a secure drop-off point. Inside the tower, Oyuki orchestrated the monster's movements, ensuring they targeted only elves who harmed humans. Ellie checked in on her, worried about the strain of controlling so many surface creatures, but Oyuki insisted she was managing. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Shortly after, the rescue team delivered the girl to a nearby village. She thanked them repeatedly before being placed safely under local care. On the journey back, the men discussed the disturbing practice of forcing humans to serve as monster bait, baffled by the intense racism that permeated the continent. Their leader eventually ended the conversation, reminding them they would depart early the next morning. Meanwhile, Sasha sat alone in her room, consumed by panic. She needed to reach the tower before the White Knights were deployed. If they discovered Light alive, her lie would unravel instantly. But the tower was surrounded by monsters above level 1000, far too dangerous for her to approach alone. She needed a plan, and she needed it quickly. The following morning, the Elven Council convened to address the escalating crisis. One official proposed deploying the White Knights immediately, but Hardy dismissed the idea as reckless. He compared sending elite troops without adequate intelligence to stabbing blindly into mud. The Queen agreed and ordered increased rewards for adventurers while delaying White Knight deployment. Meeting adjourned, the Chancellor silently fumed, convinced the Queen favored Hardy only because he was her son. Hardy later visited the Queen to thank her for shielding his men from needless danger. She reassured him that she would never risk her son's life without cause. She also admitted the situation surrounding the tower was urgent, perhaps even signaling the rise of a new Dark Lord. Hardy asked whether she believed a new master had appeared. The Queen acknowledged the possibility but reminded him that years ago, when a potential master had been found, the child proved ordinary and was disposed of. Hardy mentioned he would have enjoyed participating in such a mission. To him, humans were vermin. The next morning, the guild posted even more tower-related quests, attracting a crowd of adventurers, including Light's party. As they passed through the guild hall, Sasha heard Light's voice. She spun around, eyes wide with shock, and demanded he reveal his face. Light attempted to brush past her, claiming he wore the mask to hide severe burns, but Sasha refused to listen. She struck him hard, knocking the mask from his face, and the truth she feared most stood before her.